Okay, so r/fake disorder cringe. Come and cringe at the people faking disorders for attention and clout. Alright. Let's see more about. The point of this subreddit is to have a laugh at people who are spreading misinformation and faking disorders. We're not here to perpetuate ableism or stigma surrounding disorders. We typically focus on mental illnesses as there is an abundance of misinformation surrounding them online. While we do acknowledge that these fakers are causing harm and stigma, the goal of this subreddit is not to cancel them or affect them in any way. We are an unobserved from afar community. Okay, so no mindless theorizing, no armchair diagnosing based off a short video or some images. It will be clowning on the people who are proven to be fake, small minority, like that one person who faked Tourette's, who I can't remember the name of. So let's go and look at this. I mean, I can't imagine this being a very busy subreddit, right? Okay. Alright, that's sort of a lot. It's updated very often. Alright. I think we may have lost the plot here. It alarms me that people have so much energy, so much willingness to do what's seemingly right, and yet instead of going after ableists or championing for disabled rights and substantiative health care, they're attacking us. It's also immensely funny, sarcasm, how the same group of people, which increases on whims and after large content creator videos, declare that we're the trend, as if sharing our struggles with others to inform lay people and those unknowledgeable to their own conditions is a trend, as if finding a way to let it out and cut out some sort of relief is just the cool new thing to do, as if forming a community with sweat and tears and tearing it from the hands of trolls is just an ooh, as if trying to focus on the words of your community instead of the hate and threats from faceless idiots is really getting us good attention, as if we chose the inherited and trauma-brought conditions we were born with or later developed. There's no choosing autism or dissociative order or PTSD, but there is choosing to treat us horribly just for existing online. That's the real choice. Another trend is watching cringe talk compilations because despite the creator knowing that probably not everyone in this is faking, it's still entertaining to them and you. I admit I've watched some out of curiosity and a can't look away disgust. I've also used it to follow some pretty cool creators on here. But those motivations are not because it's funny. I don't find it funny to watch an autistic have a meltdown or be purposefully triggered by choosingly ignorant relatives or friends. I don't find it entertaining to watch people with DID and OSDD sharing about their experiences as actual people that go through it and have that knowledge not brought by the DSM made to seem like a joke. I don't think it's LOL worthy to prop a little child exploring themselves through stems and furriness as something to point and laugh at. And this all makes me wonder how these people who seem to have had an I'll defend the suffering people mindset turn into mindless idiots who have been brainwashed into thinking no mentally or chronically ill person is legitimate, even the diagnosed ones. But oh yes, shaming everyone into silence and cringing at your fellows expressing themselves will really do wonders for the neurodivergent and disabled communities at large. Calling out everyone who managed to get disability, a notoriously difficult thing to get and a resource a great many disabled cannot get access to, is really going to make it easier for the real disabled to get. Let's not petition for better healthcare or accessibility. Let's just shame everyone into shutting the fuck up about their conditions so the normals and denials won't get uncomfy. Because always remember, if you're suffering, the decent and sensible thing to do is keep it to yourself. The apathy is at levels I personally cannot fathom. And P.S. Trolling is a catshit label to slap on actual abuse, verbal, cyber, and otherwise. Slander is to convince people not to listen to the individual, which is censorship. Threats of violence is to silence them via intimidation, which is censorship. Bullying is preying on vulnerable and forcing your will on, which is censorship. Spam is posting so much other crap that the actual individuals or the actual issue is completely drowned out, which is also censorship. Anon accounts have a lot of power, and with anonymity comes, apparently, freedom of accountability. It could be argued, and I will argue it right now, that having a corner of the internet to drag people through the mud, which doesn't stay there if you catch my drift, and many of us usually know when we're posted there, is a bit of all of the above. I'm sure there are many people who don't or stop posting what they go through because they're afraid of this mindless bunch of bullies. And somehow, there are NDs and disableds who are part of this bunch. And to them, I say, are you alright? Is ableism that internalized? Do you somehow feel better about yourself by seeing others spit on? And to all of them, you're acting like middle schoolers. Grow. So this person on Reddit is stating that the individual on, I believe, Twitter is romanticizing disorders via making flags and alleging it's insensitive. But romanticization is making something seem better or more appealing than it really is. It's just a flag. It's rectangles with lines of color. They're not demanding people see the dating worth of individuals with these disorders. When flags are brought up, my mind immediately draws parallels with the queer community, something many of us are also a part of. Same with this Twitter user, and we use flags to reclaim our pride and state, loud and proud, that we also deserve a seat at the table and our voices to be heard. Honestly, I get the vibe that some of these people are really just trying to find reasons.
I'm What made a video on our fake disorder on YouTube, and I think she did a great job.
In the subreddit r/fake disorder cringe, there is a tag to put on things called disorder salad. And that means essentially that you have too many disorders according to these people's opinions, and therefore you must be faking. And it starts at like 3 disorders. 3. Comorbidities who? What's that? What do you mean they come in groups? That doesn't make any sense. No, that's not how it works. That's not how the human system works. I gotta go wash my mouth out with soap after saying all of that.
Funny, yes, but not funny, haha. Funny ableism.
Shit like this brings the movement down. Everyone's a feminist until there is a spider.
I want to tell you a story about masks. So first of all, I'm autistic, and I've never enjoyed anything in or near my face, including balaclavas, ski masks, even though I understood why I needed to wear them and I appreciated the protection they afforded me. Still just absolutely hated it. Same with like hair in my face, etc., etc. And yet, because of that protection and because I understood why, even as a teeny little child, I still wore the masks. And let me tell you, I had more than a few autistic meltdowns over it. And same thing with the masks now. I make that small sacrifice of my personal comfort for however long I need to wear them, for the safety of not just myself, but anyone around me, including my family. And ever since the pandemic started, and yes, I consider it still ongoing, I have been terrified that I would bring home the disease and kill someone of my family. Never mind someone that I may not even know and never know that I led to the death of via being a vector for the disease to get to them. And so the story I want to tell you is one in which I wore a mask, like fully, like straight, even in my sleep, for a week, because I was staying somewhere that is not my home. And I want to tell it to demonstrate that if you are not autistic or you don't have any reason why you shouldn't or why you can't wear a mask, the excuses are bullshit. They're bullshit. And I'm just doing this video just right off the cuff, not like scripted. So I'm going to stutter a little bit, and I apologize for that. But so anyway, I'm autistic. I don't have the diagnosis yet for that, but you know, I still have all the symptoms, hate stuff on my face. That's established. And I get a referral and then, you know, thusly an appointment to one of the big special clinics. I'm not going to name which one, but it's one of the big special ones that like everybody loves and sees like as an authority in the medical world, and people from all over the world come and get treated and stuff. Now, I could have gone alone, but I also have bad anxiety. And my grandma, she had been there before for herself, and she was comfortable driving there. And she would be excellent moral support, and that's everything I needed. So she very generously was like, yeah, I'll drive you, I'll take you, you know, I'll figure out hotel room and all that stuff. And so we went. Now, me and Grandma, we don't live together. And she's obviously in, you know, the later stages of adulthood. So I wore a mask. And so, but from the second I met her and jumped in the car with her, I had my mask on. And I had my mask on in the hotel room, and even while we slept, because we slept in the same room. We had one room, you know, 2 beds, and again, she's older. Her immune system isn't going to be as strong as someone, say, in their 30s. So to not just protect myself from getting something that was already showing really shitty, lasting effects, this was after the mask mandate and towards, I want to say, the high of what most people consider COVID, even though, again, it is not over. So not just to protect myself from quite possibly another chronic illness, and her, and strangers from, you know, the clinic, where, again, it's a huge congregation of people from all over the place. And at this time, a lot of people were choosing not to wear masks for whatever asinine reason. But also to protect the other members of my family who I also interacted with a lot. Like my mother, who also would not need another chronic illness on top of everything else she's handling. Same with Grandpa. So I, someone who is very irritated by masks, and whose ears literally, like, begin to ache, and then it spreads, like, to the rest of my head for wearing a mask for a long time. I wore my mask to bed. I wore it to sleep. And again, I want to press that I am autistic. And I wore my mask to bed. Like a straight, at least 5 days, I wore my mask. So if there's no reason for you not to wear a mask, and you're choosing not to, what is wrong with you? Why don't you care about anyone else besides you? Seriously, why not? Put on your face panties and stop complaining. It's not that hard. And I don't care if you get offended that I am very passionate about this topic, People are dying. It's not one of those opinion things. There are deaths. There's... I gotta digress. But again, me, autistic, wore mask 5 straight days. You, no excuse not to. So this Reddit post tagged with misinformation has posted a video made by someone with Tourette's, which is a basic plea to stop fake claiming when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, essentially, and you don't have the qualifications. And yes, the OG TikToker did put it a lot more nicely than I just did. The Redditor then goes on to say that the actual fakers are harmful to the people with these actual disorders because it gets doctors to refuse us care. I like to focus just on this line here, as it leads to doctors not giving us the treatment we need because of how many people who fake the same thing. If a doctor, a licensed professional to diagnose and or treat a condition, tells you they won't diagnose or refer you to another professional who can, or tells you they'll charge you more because you're quote-unquote bothering them with self-diagnosis you read on the internet, because you found a community you relate to and see more than just a fair amount of commonalities in, I don't consider that a doctor. And refusing a patient care due to their own biases is against their ethics codes. Honey, that ain't your doctor, that's someone on an ego trip. That's not your doctor, that's someone not understanding that self-diagnosis is the first step into knowing you need to go in and ask for some sort of test, and from there, get a diagnosis and treatment. I can't draw parallels to human bodies being physically impacted because for obvious reasons. So maybe you'll understand this. If your car isn't making noise or handling bizarrely or leaking, do you know that you have to go into the auto body shop? No. And unless you have the resources to take it in every year, you're not. And let's be real, that's not how human checkups work anyway. But that car isn't going to get seen, resources are not. Imagine you have that car and stumble upon some other car owners talking about their cars actually having something wrong with them, despite no very, very obvious symptoms otherwise. And since going to the shop, and these owners explaining what they think needs to be addressed or looked into more, the cars are better than ever. Imagine you then go into the auto body shop, and the mechanic interrupts you saying, it would hurt for one thing, and be extraordinarily unprofessional for another. It would also make you hesitant to ever go to an auto body shop again. So now imagine how it would be so incredibly unprofessional for a psychologist to do this to anyone. These professionals need to stay objective, competent, and effective. So how can you say that these professionals actively choosing not to follow these ethics rules is the fault of those looking for care? How, with all sincerity, can you fault the individuals who are doing everything right by going to the professional and seeking that professional diagnosis, are in the wrong when it's the professional who chooses to follow their own personal biases and betray their patients and do active harm? Because, again, that person won't want to go and seek mental help like ever again. And leaving some of these conditions untreated does cause harm. An opinion you're not gonna like. If you allow bad actors, and there will always be bad actors who take advantage whenever and wherever they can, if you let these people allow you to feel justified in taking resources away from people who need them, you're a child. You're a child. You're immature, you don't have the ability to understand there will always be quote-unquote system cheaters. Know that these people can and do exist, while the people who need these services also exist. Penalizement of a group of people when they're already a suffering minority that needs so many more quote-unquote benefits than the existing ones that take literally years to win when some decide to cheat the system is really shitty. And our community, the one that should actually have a say in this, does think these people are bad and should pay, but we reject us being persecuted for their bad actions. People who somehow manage to get the hard-won quote-unquote benefits like SSDI or welfare, who don't need it, should be called out for it, but that cannot justify them being made more difficult for us to get. If you think it does justify making a hard-to-get resource even harder, please explain to me how that's not ableist. Just a quick reminder. To get SSDI, you need to get rejected a multitude of times and have to get an attorney and spend years fighting for it. You also need to be on the brink of homelessness. I speak from experience and conversations with many people who've gone through the same. On that note, thinking that just because someone can't get some resource you probably don't understand does not equate to they're actually not disabled. With everything that I've seen online, something I can't help but wonder about is how much of these fakers are actually just ableist people pretending to know a condition and screaming that whomever they're playing doctor on is just a faker, which then creates some fallacy that faking and trending these conditions is just so common. Just some food for thought. Something that I've noticed on the physical faker subreddit, aka the I'm playing general practitioner and whole body expert subreddit, is that for people who seem to be hooked on modern science, from what I've seen, but I don't look in these things, that's way too much digital self-hurt, they keep the wrong name for a certain condition. That condition is factitious disorder. It's the disorder known to have caused G. Rose Blanchard's life of struggle and commonly known as Munchausen syndrome. In the example, it's by proxy, as the daughter is the one who's the object of the falsification of symptoms / induction of the symptoms. They call these people who are brave enough to share their stories munchies. It's, oh, this munchie's doing this, and that one, that other thing. Again, with no qualifications to diagnose, never mind how unethical that would be and how biased all I've seen on the sub is. The DSM-5, which again is a book toted by at least the other subreddit, which I believe has a lot of overlap into this one, has it listed as factitious disorder or factitious disorder imposed upon another. This name change is to more accurately describe the disorder, especially as Baron Munchausen was just some guy who told ridiculous tales of his military service and didn't try, at least to my knowledge, to falsify himself or anyone else as having all these symptoms. Also, she's not an excuse to fake claim even harder, and if you take the media as a demonstration as to how an ill person is required to look, because all that shit is still ignorant too, even though I'm sure there's some Venn diagram of these people with those that go, oh, it's a fictional character, so I'll do whatever the fuck I want with them. That's just choosing to be stupid. Educate yourself, spend 5 extra seconds considering other possibilities outside of your knee-jerk, likely biased, immediate thoughts. It's inherently an ism for the community of subject to be screaming at you to do something useful instead of harass them, yet you just continue to do so, and with more rigor. So yes, G. Rose Blanchard is big again, but that's not the correct name for the disorder, and not everyone can be faking. Please keep learning. You're not the only existence nor experience in the world. Salutations and goodbye. P.S. To those disordered and disabled, you do not owe anyone proof. You deserve love, respect, and consideration. I hope you have a less painful, more energetic day. This video is triggered by the Jamie Whitfield situation, and by no means do I condone any sort of faking. Those people make it harder for the rest of us, and do active damage by supporting this falsity that so many people are fakers and blah blah blah. But the thing is, you feel as if there's so many because shit like that gets around even to mainstream media and becomes big cases like with murderous, factitious disordered people or cancer fakers. And when us people who have these conditions for real come out and share our struggle or event or educate, you all fake claim us or sit at the sides and drool over any sort of excuse you can logic about how this is false and that shouldn't be possible, etc., just so you can finally leap. It's disgusting. A lot of you are functioning on conclusion bias for fakers because, I assume, it's big gossip and brings in the views. Everybody loves a hoax. Also, since you all are the think critically type, think about this. When alleged family members come out and talk shit about the believed faker, you're assuming that they're not estranged whatsoever and that these alleged relatives have no reason to lie or slander the individual. It really feels like y'all just take everything against the individual at face value because you can't fucking wait to sink your teeth into the next drama. To be clear, again, I am not arguing about this case specifically or excusing fakers. I'm telling you that y'all need to think non-superficially about this because it's actively harming the disabled and disordered community. It's already been seen since G. Rose Blanchard was released that ignoramuses are having a ball going around and fake claiming. Calm down, take a second to think rationally, and ask yourself how you know whoever is faking for sure. Also, I'm fairly sure it's against the law to disclose anything about a patient unless there's an active information disclosure, with adults at least. P.S. The Romani community has come out and said, please don't use the slur even if it's a name because that normalizes the slur. So the correct thing to do is not use it. I don't doubt that there's validity to deception clues and all that, but I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you all that you're assuming virtually no trauma or conditioning or neurodivergency in that. Like, yes, it's interesting if not helpful to suss out convicted people's lies and such, even cases that have a troubling amount of red flags all pointing to a person or people, but I've only seen trauma accounted for. Only trauma. And even that's rare. Now, this might be seen with trauma survivors, but we also see it with the suspect, and I think that's significant about this case. I applaud the consideration there, but it's more like a band-aid on a lawnmower wound. Whether or not these creators intend this takeaway, people, especially the young and impressionable, are going to take these deception tips outside of YouTube or TikTok or whatever service and apply those things to real life, whether it be watching other cases or putting it on the people around them. Again, it doesn't account for the wide variety of ways people respond to a traumatic event. Oh, they're not screaming and yelling like I believe I'd react, so I don't think they felt anything during that time. Or how traumatized people may not cry or may be accustomed to having to press their beliefs, having to convince people around them that such and such occurrence really happened. Oh, they're pushing the story without prompting, so they're lying and telling the story because honest people wouldn't feel the need for that. Or how neurodivergent individuals just react differently in general. Their reactions go against conventional beliefs, and they may smile or laugh out of discomfort or try and fail to portray whatever the correct expression should be in that situation, but fail on account of masking or something else, and also rely on scripting. It's not fair to a considerable amount of the populace. So again, I don't think this sort of thing is purely snake oil, but I do disagree with putting full faith in it, especially when it essentially never takes valid divergency of the norm into consideration. I wanted to post this a few months ago, but got sidetracked by life. Anyway, one of the Dr. cosplaying subreddits had this post they tagged as Disorder Salad, which means that this individual has more than 3 disorders and so must be lying, because it's not like comorbidities exist or anything. As you can see, there's a bunch of nomenclature here. I'm not going to read it all to you because it's hard and I don't have the energy for that, but I did look most of these words up and found them on dissociative disordered sites. Terms that were made by and for people with dissociative disorders, namely DID. As is expected of the sub, people bash the individual and invalidate their entire experience because they use terms made by and for the community. At the time, I was actually interested enough to show my therapist this and posit that this person, after discovering the ND community, the deeper DID community, and having people's words from that resonating with them and doing research themselves, discovered these terms, again made by and for these people, and got just a bit too excited at all the ways their life experience could be described. Now, something that you'll hear from me, especially when I cover the Dr. Cosplayers, is that people with neurodivergencies or chronic conditions need diagnoses in order for them and their life experiences to be validated, because this society loves too much to ostracize everything outside the norm. And, well, if you're in online ND circles, you see how even professional diagnoses get invalidated by everyday morons. It'll become a broken record sort of point on my page, but I don't care because it needs to be said how it is, which is, diagnoses are difficult to get, require a place of privilege, even actual doctors have no place diagnosing random people online. Many are likely undiagnosed, and invalidating someone's life experience because of your own narrow perception is fucking disgusting. Another important point is that science is behind. By the time research and funding happens, the Today group is standing there like, what the fuck? Why did it take so long? Hello? And yeah, obviously we knew everything you just said in your fancy papers because we've been saying that for years. Yes, science is good, and it's good to listen to science. I'm not denying that by any stretch of the imagination. But you also can't lean on it as a frontier forger because it's not. It's behind the leaders of communities and is late to the party much of the time. So it's disingenuous to dismiss what communities are saying just because there hasn't been thousands and thousands of dollars pumped into a study that takes multiple years to write just to regurgitate or validate what a community has been saying. Back to the subreddit post. I recognize that these terms aren't official as a nomenclature of the scientific community, but I'm not narrow-minded enough to write them off entirely when they're not only created by the community itself, but validate so much of these people's experiences. I'm the last person that will criticize someone just for trying to have a term that explains what they've gone through because that shit is hard to get for oneself. To have as a widely used word many can identify with and understand, and be able to hold up and say, it says here that this is what I've been experiencing, and to have this explanation and way to resonate with others is euphoric in ways I can't describe. My therapist agreed with me that this individual probably got a bit too excited with all this new nomenclature and probably used one or more incorrectly in self-description. However, that does not invalidate their entire experience with dissociation, nor that they may very well have DID. I don't understand how these people can take the logical conclusion that one or two are likely actually fake, as in not applicable to this individual, and jump to, they're lying about it all. To me, it really just goes to show how much these people want blood in the water, even if they have to draw it themselves. Reminder, you ain't a doctor, and even if you're licensed to diagnose, it violates your ethics to diagnose people online, especially if you have biases you're allowing to cloud your judgment. If you're disordered, you're valid, sweetie, and deserve to have a good day. You're not alone. Other people's ignorance isn't your fault. Are we not going to address as a society how someone explaining their health struggles as valid reasons as to why they can't go to or do such and such are dismissed as convenient excuses? How someone's health or other struggles are purely on them, and that your wants and plans are somehow more important than someone being taken care of or not feeling beholden to overexerting and thus hurting themselves? How they're the selfish ones for needing space or time or rest, but then the sick ableists will come out of the woodwork to justify their bigotry and need to avoid any and all possible inconveniences because your life as someone more able is just defaultingly more valuable? Also, how is it chronically online to share about your condition, educate, create your own terms in place of science being slow, and discourage misinformation and ignorance, and speak out about ableism, but it's not chronically online? To assume that anyone and everyone who talks about any sort of condition online is automatically faking and attention-seeking and victim-playing and grifting, even though, Everyone knows it's a fight to get even recognition of your struggle from the medical field, and those of us who do share get harassed over it. Bizarre.